Can you hear me? Okay, we started with a technical problem. This means everything will go great. Welcome to CEDEFOP's virtual get-together on learning for a greener future. We are very glad to have you with us today. Today's event focuses on presenting CEDEFOP's latest practical guides that has been developed jointly with UNESCO UNEVOC. The guides discusses methods, tools, and policy approaches that can make vocational education and training that greener. We will start with an introduction by CEDEFOP's Executive Director, Mr. Jürgen Siebel, followed by Mr. William Neal of the Directorate General for the Environment of the European Commission, since this webinar is part of the 2025 EU Green Week, and we are very glad to have Mr. Neal with us. The webinar will also be enriched by the experience of experts from EU countries and Canada, so stay with us, tuned in, well, until the end of the webinar for the very interesting panel discussion. It's time to start. So I would like to warmly welcome CEDEFOP's Executive Director, Mr. Jürgen Siebel, for his opening message.
Yeah, thank you, Stelina, and hello and welcome to all of you to this CEDEFOP virtual get-together on learning for a greener future. Thank you all for joining. My name is Jürgen Siebel and I'm the director of CEDEFOP. And CEDEFOP is the European agency that informs EU policy for vocational education and training, for skills and for qualifications. We are connecting to you from our headquarters here in Thessaloniki, Greece, to all corners of the European Union and actually around the world. We have participants from Brazil, from Canada, the United States, Turkey, Albania, Serbia, Kenya, India, Uruguay, New Zealand, and we also have representatives from several international organizations such as the ILO, OECD, and World Bank. This CEDEFOP webinar is, as Stelina mentioned, proudly a European Green Week event. Some of you may attend more of these week events and sessions in Brussels or elsewhere in the EU, or connect virtually to take part in discussions about circular solutions for a competitive EU, which is the theme of this year's edition of the Green Week. In this special virtual get-together, we will talk about how we can anticipate skills needs in the circular and green economy. When we speak about skills needs at CEDEFOP, we see this very broadly, so it can be anything like a job, a profile, an occupation, or actually an actual skill. Now, we all know that becoming climate neutral, sustainable, and circular means many things. It's a technical revolution, but also a thorough socioeconomic transformation, which does impact employment, jobs, and skills. And CEDEFOP has been working on green jobs and skills for over a decade. We crunch numbers to understand where green jobs are likely to emerge and which green skills are trending. But we also talk to vocational education and training professionals. And what we often discover is that policymakers, policy implementers, and practitioners are looking for information and inspiration on how to move from green ambitions to green action. We have a lot of knowledge of what needs to change to become greener and more sustainable, but less so on how to achieve it via people, skills, and training. So regions, sectors, and vocational education and training providers, they need practical information to prepare young learners for jobs in greener economies or to support adults in the transition to greener jobs, and in general, to accelerate and scale upskilling efforts. Today's event is mostly about the how. We present, as Stelina already said, the new practical guide on meeting skills needs for the green transition that CEDEFOP has recently released together with UNESCO UNEVOC. And we will also hear about inspiring initiatives on the ground from Europe and from Canada. And as said, this event is a Green Week event, so we're happy to have with us William Neal, who is advisor on circular economy at the European Commission's DG Environment, which is the Directorate General that is in charge of the Green Week. And therefore, before I hand back to Stelina and also to Vlasis, who will be our hosts for today, William, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the Green Week, how you view the type of green work that CEDEFOP carries out and where you believe it could add value to your context. So 3 questions, maybe 3 minutes. Thank you very much and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Jürgen, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as you say, we're really full on today and tomorrow with our Green Week plenary session here in Brussels, and we've actually combined this with the main conference of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. So Brussels is really the place to be if you're a circular economy enthusiast like me, but of course you can follow online. And also there are more than 300 other events like this one around Europe in the coming weeks under the auspices of Green Week. And I think this is a testament to the central place that circular transition has taken in our policy narrative and our actions. So I encourage everybody to check the programme and also to check the website of the stakeholder platform, where you can find a fantastic repository of examples and experiences. So we're at a very important stage for our circular transition. The main major legislative advances that we've had to set the framework during the European Green Deal have actually not yet led to a transition. The indicators, all the indicators for circularity are pretty stubborn. They're not really moving. And Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi, in their reports to the President and to the Council, told us that actually what we need now is to get the economics right. We need to tackle the bottlenecks in supply and demand of secondary materials, of circular goods and services, and so on. And this is what we plan to do in the Circular Economy Act, which we will deliver by the end of next year. This is a flagship action of the Clean Industrial Deal. So that this is where we're at and what we're working on. But I think that one aspect of the circular transition that we're trying to achieve that we know so little about is the labour market impacts. We have some intuitions. I have intuitions. We have some evidence, but the traditional general equilibrium modelling isn't suited to telling us or to dealing with sort of systematic or systemic economic change. And we also lack the analysis to extrapolate from many of the examples and experiences that we see. And I think this is where the work of CEDEFOP is really crucial. So, for example, my intuition would tell me that as we move from more capital and material intensive jobs to more circular value retention activities, these will be more labour intensive and they will require new skills. My intuition would tell me that if we ensure that products that are put on the European market are more circular, they're more durable, they're more repairable, they're more recyclable, and then this will therefore boost those kind of value retention activities, all of the R's, the refurbishment, the repair, the remanufacturing, the recycling. And my intuition tells me also that these activities require a range of skills and that these activities will tend to take place closer to where the product is consumed, even if that product might have been produced on the other side of the world. When we look at the evidence, I see evidence, for example, that if you take 10,000 tons of waste, you can create on average 2 jobs by incinerating or landfilling it, 115 by recycling it, and more than 400 jobs by repairing and reusing that waste. But the issue is, how can we translate that kind of interesting evidence into policy? We need to find ways to understand the impacts across Europe, not least so that we can actually indicate these in our own impact assessments for legislation. We will be launching our impact assessment for the Circular Economy Act soon, and we need to be able to show where are the skills gaps, where are the labour market impacts, and so on. I think when we talk about circular economy, we have to understand that, yes, there will be core circular jobs in the kind of value retention activities I mentioned, but there'll also be many enabling jobs in things like design and digital services and so on. And there'll be also a big influence, big impact on mainstream jobs in the primarily linear activities and industries, which will be affected by the transition. Now, CEDEFOP said themselves in the policy brief on circular economy in 2023 that, and I'm quoting, systems thinking and other core circular economy skills should be part of the core curriculum rather than optional add-ons. And I think this is going to the heart of that. We have the core circular tasks, we have the enabling ones, and we have the mainstream ones. And I think that we're really counting on your efforts to inform and guide us in the transition in all of those areas to make sure that we have the skills that we need to ensure the transition. So with that, I will pass over to the real experts to explain, as you said, Jürgen, the how. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William. That was very interesting. That's right. We have been working on the areas that you mentioned. And thank you for mentioning our work, particularly in the circular economy. That being said, of course, the research and analysis of the impacts of the green transition on jobs and skills should not stop because it's evolving. But we saw, as I will explain, the potential of sharing with the stakeholders the ways that they can actually enhance the greening of vocational education and training, part of which is understanding which are the skills and the implications on jobs. Just to confirm that everyone can see my presentation. Excellent. So this publication is the fourth in a series of practical CEDEFOP skills anticipation guides that we have been drafting for policymakers, analysts, and experts. The three previous ones presented conventional and emerging methods for identifying technological change and its impact on skills, forecast, big data, foresights, and provided some practical insights. This fourth practical guide has a more thematic, as you may have guessed, rather than a methodological focus, and zooms on skills intelligence and vocational education and training for the green transition specifically. Before we go into the details, it's very important to note that this guide is the result of teamwork. Besides Vlasis Korovilos and myself, Jasper van Loo, who is a coordinator of skills and labor market analysis, and our expert colleagues Joanna Napirella, Vladimir Dubetan, Yiri Branca, Anastasia Pouliou, Adam Tsakalidis, and Ernesto Villalba contributed to parts of the publication, and we warmly thank them for that. And this has allowed us to provide the stakeholders with a guide that touches upon various aspects of CEDEFOP's work. The other part of our collaboration with UNESCO UNEVOC regards an online platform that UNESCO UNEVOC is powering, and that will be presented in the next stage of this webinar. So why did we develop this guide and what is the added value? I will dare to say that William replied partly to this question, and I thank him for that. From our perspective, we saw from our research analysis and exchange with stakeholders the need for information, informing and supporting the key stakeholders of VET and skills ecosystems, as we call them, at national, regional, local, sectoral level, in order to understand how to better support young learners and adults in employment or not, in making the transition happen. And this is why the guide delves into the areas that CEDEFOP has long experience: skills forecasts, surveys, big data, such as our Skills of Age platform, other skills intelligence tool, our work on skills anticipation methods, our skills governance approaches, because it's not only the methods, it's also how to implement it, etc. So these shed light on labor market trends in sectors and occupations and give insight into how skills upgrading and new emerging skills transformations can actually change jobs. At the same time, we took advantage of CEDEFOP's work on apprenticeships, validation of non-formal and informal learning, and micro-credentials that can enhance the green transition, particularly, if we may stress, in sectors and regions that may be challenged more and can enable a more circular future in general. We try to make it practical, this guide, which means that we focus on offering practical insights and very rich with good practice examples from member states, EU member states, and beyond. So in our view, it can actually be used. It's a tangible tool for stakeholders in making their VET provision greener. Skills anticipation, what's of course highlighted by Mr. Ziebel, but also William, is about understanding what is the impact. How can we understand the impact on jobs and skills? We have been working for many years on this area, and we know that there is at least one method of skills anticipation in place in every EU country. But at the same time, we see that stakeholders still face challenges in fully understanding what to measure and how when it comes to the green transition. This was highlighted to us by a short survey we ran among representatives of EU countries, our reference members. And as you can see, there are very different types of challenges that they face. To support these challenges, the guide starts with definitions that are very important. What exactly do we mean by skills for the green transition? Which are the tools and methods that can be used for skills anticipation? And these are presented and could be useful, hopefully, not only for settings where they're taking their first steps towards skills anticipation, but also where in countries, regions, sectors where they wish to improve. Approach is already in place. And there are several examples offered as inspiration, drawing from CEDEFOP's own work, but also from countries such as Norway's National Skills Forecast that captures the green transition, surveys to Swedish technology companies, graduate tracking from Cyprus to Jordan, as well as forecasting systems focusing on sectors such as OSCA system in Estonia. What is important, in my view, to keep is that the main message of the chapter is that green skills anticipation is feasible. So stakeholders do not have to start from scratch. There are methods and tools already in place that can be augmented and allow the stakeholders to grasp the impact of greening in their labor markets based on local needs. We have a dedicated chapter to do justice to our extensive work on online job advertisements analysis, since I think it's widely accepted that the green transition requires, to the extent possible, timely and sufficiently granular data to shape policy setting and implementation. And often this is not possible by other skills anticipation methods. But big data that are drawn from analysis of online job advertisements are especially suitable because they can connect the green transition with the digital transition and can be available in much quicker, much shorter periods of time, almost real time, as we say, and often at the regional level. The dedicated chapter in the guide analyzes how such data can be practically used, along with some key challenges, of course, in how to better leverage them in terms of implementation. What is interesting, and I highlighted this, and this type of data allow us to go beyond the dichotomy between green and non-green occupations. It has allowed us to understand that more and more there are occupations that encompass green and non-green tasks and skills at the same time. So they have allowed us to measure a continuum of greenness and green pervasiveness that can better make us understand what is requested by employers in occupations such as financial analysts, for example. I give the floor to Lasis.
Yes, thank you, Stelina. I hope you hear me well. So next to skill anticipation tools and methods, skills governance also plays a crucial role. And by that, we mean a process of involving stakeholders from the public, private and third sector, from different economic sectors and geographical units in generating, disseminating and using skills intelligence to steer the appropriate policies related to skills development and balancing skill supply and demand. As Stelina mentioned, on the one hand, although at different levels of maturity and complexity, skills anticipation methods and tools are in place in all EU member states, so we do not need to reinvent the wheel to support the green transition in particular, but rather we need to make sure that the existing skills governance arrangements can be enhanced by introducing green elements across the board. Still, what we need to push forward is advancing and deepening stakeholders' involvement at all levels as the core of a green skills governance approach. Because we know the social partners and other stakeholders are often given room to engage, but not always with a joint deciding role. And with only an advisory role, they may have little room to contribute decisively to shaping national vet responses to the needs of the green transition. The practical guide suggests that CEDEFOP's skills governance framework, which is a pre-existing tool, can be also applied in the context of the green transition to help shape holistic, stakeholder-driven approaches to greening VET, something that is also in line with one of the key messages that comes from our collaboration with UNEVOC in the online tool that our colleague Ken will present later today. The guide also lists different roles that socioeconomic partners can have in national and regional greening strategies and initiatives, and presents numerous good practice examples of such collaboration. The figure on the right of the slide provides a systemic view that brings together principles, roles, and activities in relation to how stakeholder engagement and collaboration can materialize in the context of the green transition. But more than that, our publication looks at particular tools and practices at the implementation level related to the VET delivery and supporting measures. So first, we had a look at apprenticeships. There's one chapter dedicated to apprenticeships, which are a particularly well-placed education and training options to supply skills for the green transition. First, because exactly in terms of governance and at the design level, apprenticeships usually rely on strongly and facilitate structured and regular collaboration among stakeholders. But also at the implementation level, apprenticeships also enable the application of a local ecosystem logic that supports green transition. Also, as apprenticeships are closely tied to the labor market, the content can be swiftly adapted to evolving labor market needs. More than that, though, because of this frequent and structured collaboration among learners, teachers, and in-company trainers, the one side can learn from the other, something that we refer to as cross-fertilization of the learning venues. Not only schools learn from the industry, but also, especially in micro companies, owners and trainers can get support from school teachers on what they could be training for the green transition. Then, as meeting the pressing needs of the green transition can be also a sprint race, we also look at strategies for upskilling and reskilling adults. The guide points out that national strategies follow different approaches. Some are more targeted to specific sectors, industries, or population segments, where others are horizontal. Therefore, we remind that CEDEFOP's analytical framework for upskilling adults, with its 10 dimensions, can be a robust instrument for designing or reviewing comprehensive, well-articulated initiatives for developing skills for the green transition. Also, since our past work has showed that there are considerable regional disparities in relation to the employment outcomes of the European Green Deal, and there are several regions that face job losses, we also looked at regional strategies, for example, the regions that undergo decarbonization. So while such strategies promote a shift in terms of the economic activity, they do not always put emphasis on a skills development and training and qualifying people to support the transitions. We therefore, through the guide, bring forward a set of skill development components that can become part of regional strategies and similar activities for a just green transition. In this sprint race I mentioned earlier, micro-credentials can play a significant role as well by offering flexible and targeted skills development opportunities, either to meet particular regulatory requirements or to reskill the workforce for a particular technical skill set. Those demand-driven micro-credentials can be used to address skill gaps and mismatches. And the green micro-credentials can build on either transversal learning outcomes that are applicable and relevant to a broad range of occupations, or can be occupation or job-specific ones. The guide offers numerous examples of how micro-credentials are being used in practice to promote learning and career opportunities in green fields, and includes examples from national approaches to sectoral ones, including cases where we have employer representatives and trade unions together to collaborate on developing training options. At this point, I would like to invite you to participate in CEDEFOP's ongoing micro-credential survey. You will find a link in the chat, and this survey will remain open until the 27th of June. But we also examined validation, how validation can be a route to formally access or acquire green skills via greener certificates, and therefore contribute in reducing training duration and speeding up the process of upskilling or reskilling. Validation processes can ease access to frontline green economy occupations by allowing people to demonstrate that they already have the required skills, but they can also ease worker transitions from one economic sector or occupation to another. For this purpose, the guide also presents an exercise that we did to identify common essential skills, skills overlaps between occupations that are at the heart of the green transition, what we call as referred to as target occupations, and some more traditional ones, the source occupations that may also experience employment decline. Such exercises can give an impression of the skill similarity and can help, therefore, speed up transitions and address shortages. But at a system level, we should not forget that for validation to be trusted and used, we need stakeholders to be involved, be aware, and show faith in the outcomes of the validation process. Also, another point that is common for both responses, both microcredentials and validations, is that validation that they greatly benefit from a wider adoption of the learning outcomes approach. And now I would close with our last chapter that is dedicated to the use of AI to support a greener VET, either to help prepare teachers or to introduce green technologies in VET curricula, to personalize training according to learner interests, or to support accessing information about career and learning opportunities in green fields. While AI tools seem to be usually welcomed by teachers, at the same time, we cannot stress enough the importance of the expertise of teaching staff in making sense of AI outputs. We will hear a lot more of that in the panel discussions later. Thank you for listening, and now I would like to welcome our good colleague from UNESCO UNEVOC International Center for TVET, Ken Barrientos, for her presentation. After Ken's presentation, we will try to reply to your questions that you can put in the chat. Thank you. Ken, the floor is yours.
Let me just set up my slides, which I hope you can all see by now. Yes, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you again, Stelina and Vlasis. I'm happy to join this session today. And I'm hoping that, we'll take this opportunity to share one of the, two products of our collaboration, and one of them was just presented. So I am Ken Barrientos. I am looking after and coordinating the work on greening Tibet, and I'm going to share with you the practical guide that we have developed together with CDFOP targeting Tibet institutions. So before I proceed, let me just give you a snapshot of who we are. For those who are not yet familiar, UNESCO UNEVOC is UNESCO's International Center for Tibet. We are based here in Bonn, Germany, and we coordinate a network of Tibet institutions globally. And as you can see, UNEVOC, they're called UNEVOC Network. These UNEVOC centers are present across different regions where UNESCO works. And given the global scope of our coordination, we have an outreach to a diverse group of actors of formal and informal Tibet and skills training. And as we have shared with you, this co-developed guidance together with CDFOP. This is an updated version of the grading guide for UNESCO UNEVOC because we have first developed, and the first guidance came out in 2017. So the development process of this was supported by our lead author, Dr. Andrew McCoshan, and we were also we were able to collaborate with 15 partners, over 15 partners and networks to really understand what is needed and how to make the guide useful for them. So in this version 2 of the guide, we are really hoping that there will be a lot of opportunities for us to work together with the different institutions and really help deliver the promise that TVET can position itself to become a catalyst for the green transformation. So the two guidance documents are complementary to each other, and they reinforce key actions that can be taken by the different types of institutions that we work with. So from policy to institution level action. In the previous presentation, we heard a lot about the policy-oriented needs. And when we talk about the complementarity, there are aspects in the two guides that speak to different operating environments and actors with different roles. But why do we need another Greening Tibet guide? So what we believe is that what may be abundantly clear and doable at the policy level is not always easy to implement on the ground. And this is because there are different resources or the lack of them, or there are enabling factors and actors that can make or break the actions that we can do in Tibet institutions. So the needs of different institutions are sometimes varied and so different. For example, Tibet institutions are front and center when it comes to delivering on international policy commitments and in developing frameworks that align countries with the rest of the world. And these include the SDGs and the nationally determined contributions. Whereas education and training must be aligned to impart skills that are needed to power the climate ambitions that many countries have, and also ensure that they're able to respond to the needs of and the demands of green jobs, the needs for developing green infrastructure or expanding technologies. And skills in every occupation need to be identified, hence the need for skills anticipation in the green transition. And this is why the first guide that was presented really is very critical. And this will help ensure the relevance of training. And in all these, institutions such as training providers, vocational schools, technical training centers, and universities are on the front lines to provide the real foundation for learning about sustainability and acting on the needs of the green transformation. So on this note, the guide offers a rich set of information for those engaged in the planning, operations, curriculum design, and in the process of developing and assessing green competencies. So as you can see, there are examples, there are some case studies, and even additional resources where many of CDFOP's data and research outputs are also mentioned so that we could have a one-stop shop to be able to really get a very good and comprehensive guidance on this topic. Now, there are key challenges to overcome. So according to UNESCO surveys that were conducted in 2022 and 2023, only 47% of the member states have paid attention on green skills and sustainable skills in their strategies. Similarly, 45% of national curricula and education documents that were reviewed by the UNESCO during the time have made little reference to environmental themes. And this is after so many attempts have been made to really green education partnerships and really promote climate change education. But if we look at the bright side, notable efforts have also been observed over time, and some countries have introduced or adopted policies or practices that are related to green Tibet. And these are evident in at least 68% of the national Tibet policies that were covered by UNESCO's reviews. And this is, of course, an opportunity that we could leverage to increase the number and depth of the policies that support green education and training. Now, just to connect with what the colleagues from the European Commission have mentioned earlier, that skills planning is very relevant in the context of green transition. And here we have also identified this as an opportunity in one of the research studies that was conducted in 3 countries in Africa together with Circle Economy, whereby Tibet systems' role has been really been emphasized as crucial for the circular transition. And these are, of course, very important for Tibet systems and Tibet institutions to know, because this is the only way for them to be able to contribute and really train the adequate skills that are needed, for example, in sectors like waste management, construction, agriculture, manufacturing, where it was found that the transition to a circular economy would be most impacted in this sector. And so for this reason, we have developed these 6 institutional approaches that could be used to engage different types of institutions in the green process, looking at the gaps in the current education and training systems and the call to action to deliver more quality climate change education globally. We have a role to engage every Tibet institution, every teacher, trainer, and learner and every community and partners in the Tibet ecosystems to be able to implement something that is useful, that is multi-stakeholder oriented. And to do this, we developed this guide that's targeted at actors in Tibet institutions with their different roles to play and the different levels of responsibilities and sphere of influence. The guide captures 6 approaches that institutions can take action on and monitor. And I will be sharing just a quick glance of these 6 approaches. So the first is institutional planning. So in Greening Tibet's agenda, first things first, and we said institutional planning is central to the approaches since planning touches upon a sequence of setting goals and achieving results. And in the context of Tibet, this means aligning institutional goals and priorities, not only with what education policies demand, but also aligning with the overall economic, social, and environmental policies that are relevant for Tibet. So planning is a starting point for connecting different levels of action and identifying responsibilities for each of the actors that need to be involved. And as we know, well-executed plans and participatory actions are critical for bringing change and transforming the culture of organizations. Now, the second approach is about curriculum and pedagogy. So it's always at the core of the approach to greening Tibet. And this second approach gives emphasis on the need to improve curricula and pedagogies to be able to address the skills and the competencies that are demanded by the transition. And the guide spotlights 3 main ingredients to make curricula and training align with the green transition. So as you can see, identification and integration of sustainability and green competencies. So whether they are transversal, technical, so they need to be adopted across the board in the curricula and really ensure that they are not considered as add-ons. So this also resonates what we heard earlier from another colleague. The shift towards a learner-centered pedagogy is very important, and the adoption of sustainability as an overarching principle in pedagogy, assessment, and identification of learning outcomes would be part of this approach. The third approach is about teachers and trainers' professional development. So Tibet teachers and trainers play a key role in preparing learners and workers for a sustainable future. And as we all know, they're not just instructors, they are change makers shaping green mindsets and practices across industries. And this is why their role is more important than ever. And to do this well, teachers need the right support, knowing where they need help, and have access to ongoing professional development. So as we know, as green technologies and industry practices evolve quickly, teachers need continuous learning opportunities and regular training, hands-on experience with industries, and chances to learn, or offering them chances to learn with peers would be essential to keep them up to speed with the green transition. The fourth approach, the guide emphasizes processes that are important for greening the campus and the learning environment. So Tibet schools and training institutions should be more than just centers for instruction, but they should also serve as green physical spaces where students can gain awareness and learn about concepts, trends, and examples of green practices across the different professions in which they are pursuing. And also, green institutions should be living laboratories in which students can gain insights and experience firsthand what it is like to exercise the values and apply the skills of environmental stewardship as they go through learning about it. So here, Tibet Learning has this unique opportunity to offer what we call a learn to do approach, where Tibet focuses on hands-on experience, problem solving, and an adaptability for green economy. I'm gonna just skip this, but this is a very important aspect to mention that by 2030, UNESCO has communicated a call to action where it is expecting that all schools, at least 50% of all schools in the countries, should be green schools. And of course, this is consistent with our desire to shape campus orientation programs and really shape the drive and the campaign of green campus development based on the different approaches and the different ways to reduce carbon emissions in the operations of campuses. So this is an important aspect just to let you know. So the fifth approach is about advancing the idea of multi-stakeholder engagement by Tibet institutions. So by stakeholders, we mean local businesses, informal economy actors, community leaders, and everyone who are involved in that skills ecosystem of an institution. There are several agendas that institutional actors can facilitate, such as sharing the institution's own green practices, raising community awareness of environmental issues and responsibilities, and also supporting inclusive lifelong learning and delivering Tibet-based solutions to local environmental challenges. And we know that there are many examples across Europe and other regions that are already really gaining traction on how Tibet institutions are becoming laboratories of ideas, helping support regional enterprises and business communities in finding environmental solutions. Last but not the least is the sixth approach, which focuses on research, innovation, and enterprise. So Tibet can become a catalyst for green innovation and applied research. And as we have observed this widely happening across Europe, and many European actors are participating in the Center of Vocational Excellence, and this is a very noteworthy initiative in the region. It is possible, it's possible when Tibet institutions are actively engaged with partners that have complementary role to play and to enhance promotion of green technologies, products, and services within the operating conditions of Tibet institutions. And in some cases, institutions can act as incubator for environmentally and socially responsible projects or new enterprises that benefit local communities. So these are the six approaches that the Green Tibet Guide is offering, and I think the best way to move forward is for us to really support green transition, identify and collaborate with the work of Green Tibet accelerators, incubators, and interlocutors so that we could move in one direction and valorize the success, celebrate the success, and also the achievements of many of those that are working in this space. So we would like to thank the partners who helped us develop this guide, and we hope to be able to work with many of you. I will stop here. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much, Ken, for this very interesting presentation. I'm sure that there's so many things that could have been discussed in more detail. We're looking forward to learning more. There are some. Thank you for the comments and the questions in the chat. There were some questions relevant to CEDEFOP's guide, which we have replied to, and some suggestions for other areas that are important in the green transition, such as health, for sure. There are a couple of questions addressed to you, Ken. I think that's maybe there is time to reply to one, and then to all participants, thank you so much for comments and questions and ideas. Please share them in the chat. Rest assured that we will address them even after the webinar. And if you have a further question after the webinar is over, please don't hesitate to email us. So if it's okay with you, Ken, there is the first one question. How does the approach 3 for green skills differ from any other teacher CPD approaches? If you could briefly reply.
How does approach, okay, so I'm just looking at the question, how does approach 3 for green skills differ from any other CPD approaches? Yes, so when we talk about continuous professional development, at least in the context of the guide, we emphasize the notion that the teachers cannot teach what they don't know. So it's really mirroring or shadowing what we say are needed to be taught and to be transferred when it comes to green skills and competencies, because we know that in the process of teacher education, it's not always the case that they acquire the most up-to-date information, and with the evolution of technologies, green technologies, and the transition really evolving so fast, it's important for us to ensure that teachers have the most up-to-date information, knowledge, how the green transition is affecting the professions, how it is also changing the skills profiles, the requirements in the labor market. So we need to really create an opportunity to support them, access industry partnerships, access the opportunities to get training from the industries, and green skills and competencies. So these are very important for us to ensure that they are reflected not only in the curriculum, but also in the processes of transferring this knowledge and upgrading the knowledge of teachers. I hope I was able to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There are a couple of more questions that you can see. Ken, if you can reply directly in the chats, or you would prefer to take over with later with the experts. I think it's time that we move on to the panel discussion. And thank you again, Ken. I would like to welcome our panelists, Mrs. Dimitra Maleka, Skills Intelligence Manager at the InnoEnergy Skills Institute by InnoEnergy, Mrs. Petya Eftimova, Chairperson of the Boards of the Modern Education Foundation and ReferNet Coordinator for Bulgaria, Dr. Amy Prue, Professor and Academic Program Coordinator at Niagara College, Canada, and Silke Steinberg from FIAP, Institute for Innovative and Preventive Job Design. Thank you all very much for being here with us. If I may say, special thanks to Amy Prue for joining from Canada. It's quite early there. We really appreciate it. Dear Dimitra, let's start with discussing skills anticipation tools that you use in InnoEnergy. For, of course, information, it's important to note that InnoEnergy was originally funded as a knowledge and innovation community under a partnership agreement with the European Institute of Innovation and Technology until December 2024. But you remain an institutional partner of EIT and a member of their community. So you still have a mandate to support the European Union on the energy transition and the industrial transformation. So from that perspective, how do you monitor technological and other trends and decide on what employers need to train their staff on in relation to the green transition?
First of all, hello, and thank you very much for explaining this. Thank you for the invitation and for the question. As you mentioned, I work at the Energy Skills Institute, where I have focused the last year on how skills are evolving across the green sectors and how can we provide, actually, how can we translate that into job role focused training. So to answer your question or start answering, to monitor the trends and anticipate skill needs, we use, sorry, I heard something. Oh, we use a multi-source approach. So we focus also in 4 main trends across that: the acceleration of clean tech deployment across Europe, the circular value chains that have been mentioned also, digitalization and automation, and the demand for cross-sector transferable, or I have also heard them called portable skills. So how do we start? We start by getting real-time job market data using an AI-powered tool, which crawls basically job listings across Europe and beyond. At the moment, we're covering a little bit over 740 clean tech specific roles in all levels. And what we do is we combine this with insights from relevant industry reports, but most importantly, we have direct input from companies and subject matter experts. So we speak directly to the clean tech companies because we have our industrial alliances. So we talk to startups, SMEs, OEMs. We also talk to educators, the providers of education, and usually we do that through interviews and surveys. On top of that, we are also involved still in several EU-funded projects. Some we lead, like the Reskill for Net Zero Blueprint at the moment. Some we participate in, like the Renewable Energy Skills Partnership. And we also contribute to many kind of informally. And of course, we are also part of the Pact for Skills. So there is a lot of input. Plus, if you add on top of this, we follow the relevant policies. And to structure all this, to actually capture that data and analyze them, we have developed our own green sector specific skills taxonomy, which is obviously aligned with ESCO when it comes to the green skills that they have. And we have our own green skills framework. What it does is organizes the skills by job role and also categorizes them by proficiency, importance, type, all of that for this specific role. And basically all these tools allow us to track the skill needs that are emerging, kind of foresee what's coming also in the future, but what's also needed now, which is obviously much trickier when you have the complexity of job roles that are still evolving, or there is lack of standardization. You have the same job role under typical, under different names and titles. And just to close it, basically from there, we map the skills to the job role, we validate them with experts, and then we either match existing training or design modular training for this specific job role with content that we update regularly, because obviously it's a very fast-paced area. And we certify in different ways, and all this feed out Net Zero academies. So it's a continuous process, really, with multiple stakeholders.
Before we go to the certification, I think it's an important element that we will discuss later. Thank you for that. I keep most of all the combination of approaches that you use in order to validate let's say the data that you get from AI. This is the essence also of the skills intelligence approach that we have in CEDEFOP. But staying at the sectoral level, dear Amy, you come here with your experience as a professor at the Niagara College in Canada, but also regarding developments that you have engaged with in the province of Ontario and across Canada. In relation to skills in the agri-food sector. So your work focuses on agriculture and the food industry. And from our exchange, I was very impressed of the work that you have done on micro-credentials and the research avenue that CEDEFOP is leading in the EU. And there's a dedicated chapter, as mentioned earlier in the guide. So I would be very much interested, first of all, to understand how have you been identifying skills necessary for this particular sector, and how has it led to, let's say, more formal recognition of these skills, for example, the establishment of occupational standards in the agri-food industry?
Thank you for the kind introduction. One thing that is really important, and I liked how Dimitra and Malika introduced the idea of doing these large-scale scraping activities, to use a technical term, to identify what those skills are. We in Canada have a tendency to use a positive deviance model called DACUM, or Design of Curriculum. DACUM would be spelled D-A-C-U-M. And the idea being that we interview professionals who, if I can use the term, are positive deviants, individuals who are showing really strong leadership within the spectrum, and be able to map their occupational skills and occupational competencies necessary for their success, and then do a backwards mapping exercise to say, this is the skills progression necessary for a youth, a young student, someone who requires retraining to be able to achieve that same progression. We did a major exercise called the Learning Recognition Framework, where we did interviews with more than 500 professionals on using that DACUM occupational task assessment. And we were able to map thousands of occupational competencies using thematic analysis, and then group them by occupational strategy into that that framework that we have published. I can share the link in the chat with everyone. But the idea being, then we can use that for mapping of micro-credentials to identify what micro-credentials are going to be serving that skills progression. The other piece of the puzzle being mapping what micro-credentials are missing, because in Canada, in North America, we have not had a really strong coordinated strategy for micro-credential development. Many institutions are working independently, and we see a lot of overlaps within the micro-credentials. Currently, one of the projects that I'm working on is called the Sustainable Food Systems for Canada, or SF4C program, which is a network of higher education institutions. And we're finding that there's massive overlaps of what the micro-credentials are delivering and massive gaps in the same, where we're not fulfilling the occupational goals necessary for the success of young professionals.
Mhm.
This is I think really important for us. We're using similar web scraping using things like Beautiful Soap language. Beautiful Soap's a programming language to scrape to see what the natural language learning outcomes are against that DACM process.
That's very interesting. We will go later discussing a bit the AI aspect, but it's very interesting how you also use the skills intelligence, but then you using also the DACOM assessment, you can map micro-credentials and see what's missing. So it's a very interesting application of skills intelligence. So in order to wrap up about the sectoral aspects, Dimitra, if I may ask you to pinpoint like a couple of key points regarding what you said about certification, because for many green jobs, certification and alignment with occupational standards are mandatory for employment. And I wonder whether you have a couple of points from your experience on the way that the skills anticipation methods and design of training programs is better aligned. Apologies. Sorry, somebody spoke. Better aligned with standards and certification, because you also work with employers, and therefore it's important that it's well received by employers too. If you have a couple of points.
Yes, of course, and thank you. This is actually a very important question, and throughout the times and meetings, and when I was also in the CEDEFOP conference, this has been touched upon also, because to deliver training that really is recognized in a meaningful way, you need to have clear job role definition, you need to have validation of the skills, and it needs to be somehow harmonized. So what we do is we always start from the job role. It's the foundation of our entire work, be it for the Green Talent Accelerator or our Talent Pipeline as a service. We just break down the job roles into skills based on what I said. And we actually try to have exact descriptions on how they are applied in practice in a workplace. And we try to also validate existing skills that the learners already have, to have a more efficient learning as they go through training and certification, which was also mentioned before. And we do see from our interaction with industry that the employers really want more evidence on what someone can actually do rather than a diploma, or especially because it's a fast-changing sector. That was also highlighted in the conference, for example. So we really need to validate the skills, not just attendance to a course or knowledge. And what we saw is the best way to achieve this is aligning the assessment to the skill, not to the course as a whole that has been more traditionally used. And of course, to try and link that to the European qualification framework. We actually collaborate with ECQA, the European Certification Qualification Association, when we see possible, and we try to use the European Digital Credentials platform. Because all of this also aligned with what we said about micro-credentials, lifelong learning, so the core of the Union of Skills goals. But obviously, the main challenge is it's so fragmented across the sector, of the green sectors. The frameworks for certification are still evolving. They differ between member states. In some areas, there are stronger national standards. In others, there is practically anything. So that's really uncertain, not just for the learners, but also for the employers. You know that more than 80% of employers cannot find the right people at the moment in Europe. So when there are national standards, we try to map our learning outcomes to them. When they are not, obviously it's much trickier, and we try to align directly with the employers. And I want to just share one good example of that. very shortly that together with Solar Power Europe, as part of our European Solar Academy, we developed a harmonized skills framework for solar installers, which is one of the most demanded roles at the moment in this area. And it actually combines the skill intelligence that we bring with national requirements, so to have a more, to improve the efficiency and safety. And the pilot is running now, so we welcome more providers to join. But to close, basically, to bridge this gap between training and recognition, you need strong collaboration. You need collaboration on intelligence, on standards, harmonization, just basically to make sure that training reflects what are the real needs. And also be able to allow workforce mobility, so the recognition of skills.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dimitra. I think it's important what you highlighted, that we have to start with skills anticipation, but at the same time, there's several other factors that need to be taken into consideration. And thank you that you mentioned collaboration. It's really allows me to go to our next subtopic and address Petya Eftimova in order to go to the side of the vet schools. So, dear Petya, your leading role in the Erasmus Plus project titled Entire for greening vet curricula for electricians has offered you valuable lessons, as far as we've discussed, on the way that schools, vet schools, can be at the heart of greening vets in collaboration with employers and other actors. What tips and lessons could you share with our participants today in relation to the collaboration of schools and employers adapting curricula for the green transition?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We started this project in 2021 when the Bulgarian vet legislation did not provide any special provisions for green skills, and green skills were not integrated in the vet state qualification standards. So we decided to develop the project for the training of electricians with the aim to increase the awareness about the importance of green skills, to enhance the capacity of the vet schools and vet centers and their partner companies in anticipating and matching green skills, and also to improve vet schools and partner companies' knowledge about sustainability trends. The purpose of the project was to develop a methodology on integrating green skills in the vet curricula, developed jointly by a vet school and its business partners, a methodology that could be used for integrating green skills not only in the vet curricula for electricians, but also that could be applicable for the training in other professions. And we worked closely with the vet schools, which offer training for electricians, and the companies they partner with in the work-based learning training. So just to put you in the situation in Bulgaria, Bulgarian vet schools, besides the obligatory the obligatory content of the curriculum, have a flexibility in the so-called additional professional training, where they can decide on reducing the number of hours spent on theory and increase the number spent on practice. This means that the vet schools have the independence to focus on subjects, on skills, or on activities that have been identified by important for the business they partner with. How this happens in reality? The companies hosting apprentices send information to their partner schools about needed and expecting skills and knowledge, including green skills, and based on this information gathered from the school develops its school curricula that matches the demand from the business. The same approach we have used for the implementation of this project. We gathered information from all partner companies, enterprises that partner with the school for the work-based learning, and we asked them about their anticipated green skills that they need, the students should know when they finish. So based on this information, sorry?
No, very interesting, sorry.
So based on this information gathered, we made a proposition how the curriculum would be changed. So the very important key lesson that we really learned from this project is the importance of working at grassroots level, where schools and companies really, based on the relationship they have, go through the curricula and decide what green skills should be included in the curricula. Besides gathering all this information, we also organized a workshop to meet the school representatives and the business representatives to go through all these propositions to change the curricula and kind of validate it. So at the end of the project, we had a model curricula that we popularized a lot, and that is now used as a methodology by all other schools training electricians. And that was really the purpose of this project, to develop something that is really useful for the schools and the enterprises involved.
Thank you so much, Petja. I think it's notable that employers seem to be also engaged. So they have to be engaged in projects and activities such as the one that you described, but they themselves need to be eager to participate in such exchange. And I stress the validation of the skills identified. So again, we see from a very different perspective the need to have at least 2 or 3 sources of confirmation of which are the skills and which are the ways to incorporate it in curricula, whether we discuss schools or we discuss sectoral approaches. So besides using employers for the updates, there is an increased interest regarding the use of AI. And we are very happy to have Silke Steinbeck together with us. Silke, you co-lead the Green VocNet project that addresses the challenges of skills shortages and the lack of technical expertise in innovative green technologies as a barrier for local economies. So among others, this project explores the use of AI to adapt green curricula to new national contexts and languages. From the stage that the project is now, what are the main steps in this process?
Yeah, thank you, Stelina, for the question and the introduction, and good afternoon also from my side, and good morning, Amy, to Canada. Yes, you already said, I think it's important to explain a little bit the approach of Green VocNet. You said Green VocNet is about exchange of knowledge and experience with regard to climate-related technologies, to green tech, internationally, but also on the level of knowledge exchange inside the knowledge triangle, universities, VET providers, and the economy. And in that framework, we try to create new vocational training opportunities. We, as FIAP, we are working with anchor partners in the 3 project countries, which is Greece, Spain, and Slovakia. And through them, with a really broad network of VET providers, especially in rural regions who are not close to innovation-intensive areas. And the academic partners in our project develop MOOC courses with industry partners in 2 green tech technologies, heat pumps and green hydrogen. And the courses provide certified qualification and address vocational school teachers and also trainers from companies. They provide teachers and trainers with knowledge and materials, and these also with virtual materials, and these mainly from EcoF level 6 and 7. And of course, everything is in English. So in the project, we had the challenge because our aim is that the teachers use the content and the materials and integrate them into their lessons as bottom-up approach to innovate vocational training. But we had the challenge that the participating vocational schools work with really different, in the 3 countries, with really different groups from EcoF level 3 up to 6. The students are very different. They have different age groups. They have very different learning cultures. And of course, the lessons have to be in the local language. So we looked for a way to support the teachers to adapt all the materials and the knowledge from the courses into their languages, to the right EQF level, to the learning cultures, and so on. We saw that the teachers needed really adapted exercises, instructions, visualizations. Also, the virtual material had to be adapted. And in that context, in that process, we had the idea to use artificial intelligence to facilitate the adaptation process. That means the use of AI wasn't planned from the beginning of the project, but it emerged really from the needs in the project. And with the help of Timon Töne, a young colleague from the startup Synchronite in Dortmund, we defined this adaptation process co-creatively with the teachers in a so-called user journey to enable the developers to build an AI tool which is really adapted to our needs. And we are now in the middle of the process, step by step. We try to adapt everything with the help of the teachers. They are always responsible for the quality of the results. We worked in the beginning with, for example, with CDFOP database to the EQF levels. But then we saw we need more sensitized information. So we created surveys for the teachers. We created creative evaluation tools so that they can evaluate their training really in the process. And also the students are invited to evaluate. And the task of the teachers is really to coordinate this process, this adaptation process, and also to evaluate it with their students. But in that way, the tool becomes more and more effective. It can be used in different ways in international vocational collaboration, because it really learns to take into account different criteria which are important for the desired results. I think that's enough at first, but if there are any technical, more deeper technical questions, our colleague Timon Töne is also in the audience, and he will be happy to answer more technical questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silke. Maybe now I step in to change a bit now the focus of the questions, because leaving AI aside, beyond this example that you used, you mentioned you mentioned that you have also worked with numerous vet providers in the 3 countries, and I would like to ask you, from this experience that you had in the project, what do you see as common challenges or enablers in these countries that you have worked with in relation to greening vet programs?
Let me start with the potentials, with the drivers of green transition in vet. I think the first important insight is that the biggest enablers are always individuals, and especially young people, teachers, students, who due to climate events, who really see the need of transformation, and they recognize that green technologies can really help to be more effective in reducing CO2 emissions. Yes, And I think the next enabler is related to that. Science is a big enabler for green transition in VET, and that is why the cooperation between universities and VET institutions, in my opinion, is very, and also the industry, who is also a driver for green innovation. I think the collaboration between these three poles is very, very important. But another really key driver for the green transition is a Green Deal. That means the European Union, because the Green Deal really motivates or forces economic actors to reduce emissions. And I think that's crucial that we have these regulations. Obstacles are often national governments, not because they do not want to change things, but I think institutions, governments are often unable to keep up with the pace we need and the pace in which actions has to be taken. For social systems, it's the same. They are often too slow to really implement change in a pace we need. And of course, also conservative social forces that deny climate change, etc., are not enablers of green transition.
Thank you, Silke. I think this is also a good way to get to Petja, because Silke mentioned that sometimes governments cannot keep up. Petja, in your work, you focused in supporting VET schools to assume a greater role in developing education and training responses for the green transition. What is the support that schools may need to have such a role to lead similar initiatives?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned before, the schools use this flexibility they are given to include the green skills in the additional professional training, that they can design this part of the curriculum themselves. So according to our experience, the schools need three things. First is time. They need time to adapt the VET curricula, because this is not just adding a few new topics. This is to review the existing content, to align it with the workplace practices, and to find also the space for the green skills in the curricula. This takes time. It takes also time to train the teachers how to teach green skills. The second thing schools need is tools. Tools are very essential. Many schools do not know how to structure the process like skills mapping, or how to engage companies in a meaningful way. That's why we decided to develop a methodology for the schools, how to integrate the green schools in the curricula. This gives the schools something to build on, not to start from zero. We try to provide them with templates, examples, clear steps in the process. And finally, according to us, the schools need some backing, some support, and ideally some basic funding, because the process also requires some funding. The process puts some pressure on their limited budgets, and even small-scale funding could be helpful for them to organize the workshops with the employers. Also, they would appreciate some letter of support from a formal educational authority, be it a ministry or a local educational authority, so that they know that their work is recognized and encouraged. So this will give them the required confidence to really act and be really active to introduce the green skills in the curricula.
Thank you, Petja. And now I would like to ask Dimitra, because Petja mentioned that schools might need support, and Silke mentioned that sometimes let's say, society as a whole might not be able to keep up. In your experience, what could be the role of local and sectoral stakeholders? What can support can they bring to the table in the design and delivery of training programs?
Thank you. Well, from what we have seen across our work, it's in many of our initiatives, honestly, local and sectoral stakeholders are essential, basically. And I found very interesting, by the way, the inputs from Zilke on the use of AI tools for local adaptation. I'm going to probably catch you on that after, but more concretely on what we know and we have experienced. What we do is we develop content at the central level as part of our Net Zero Academies, but we distribute the training actually relying on partnerships with local training providers. We don't have trainers ourselves. So already it's a crucial part of what we do. Without the local ecosystem, we don't have a way of delivering the training. And of course, we have the employers that also support us locally. And that could be either online, in classrooms, or in labs. So it's a lot of coordination and collaboration with them. So we also, of course, collaborate with them to adapt and connect this content to local market needs. We translate it in the language, and it takes time, as Petya mentioned. It takes quite a lot of time, and it takes involvement of local experts. Even translating technical content in a local language is not just simply you Google Translate it. You understand what I mean? It's a very different way. So, but again, what works well in one country might not fully work the same way in another, not just in terms of language, obviously, because in the European Union we have multiple languages, but in terms of labor demand or even national policies and standards. So we also need the support from local experts, locally based experts, to understand how we need to align on that. And on our side, we also try to support them when needed with train-the-trainer programs, be it either how they could provide, we give them instructions basically on hands-on teacher notes, on hands-on training in labs, and we support them in this based on best practices from other trainers, or in some cases, we need to help them familiarize themselves with digitally delivered content. And sometimes there is already content existing locally. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just have to help them curate and align this to job role requirements, which also takes time though. A good example of this is the solar installer project I mentioned before, because we have partnered with training centers in, and I hope I will not forget anyone, Finland, Romania, France, Germany, and Poland, to co-develop the training program where we don't want to replace what is there locally, but we want to align basically this effort so that we have content that throughout is high in quality, relevant, and adapted to national standards. So to really put this all together, ultimately the local stakeholders really play a key role in delivery, but also co-designing or adapting the training. And also, let's not forget, they help really building a green mindset locally. They raise the awareness locally. That's at least from our experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I would like to have a look at this relationship with the local stakeholders and local communities in the reverse. And I will ask, we've heard a lot about the micro-credentials, which are obviously a very promising way to increase employment, employability, and access qualifications. But I would like to see also the roles in empowering local communities. And I would like to ask Amy a bit to elaborate a bit on this based on her experience.
Thank you for the parley on this. We did a micro-credential program through a program funded by the Canadian government called Skills to Access the Green Economy. And this was a program in the Caribbean region. In particular, I worked in Jamaica with the food processing sector. And we developed a number of micro-credentials on greening the sector. And it was really fascinating. While we had local delivery by professionals specific to Jamaica and build the community that way, I was invited to be a guest instructor for a number of short experiences. And it was really fascinating because the participants were not the ones that we expected. In many cases, it was it was elders from the community who were really excited about the learning so that they themselves could become informal teachers, informal trainers of best practices, as well as advocates for the greening of processes. And so we had participants who were in their 60s and 70s participating, and again, advocating for the youth that were in their communities who perhaps were not wanting to participate in the microcredential system. Getting access to NEETs, the youth not otherwise involved in education and training, is really something critical for these microcredential systems. Something we've been doing in Canada through a program called Careers Now is using programmatic AI, where we are putting advertisements about the career potential for foods and food processing and agriculture, and putting those advertisements out. We're able to then use programmatic to understand who are the people interacting with these ads, so that we can then target the curriculum and target the learning strategy to the individuals who are actually interested in learning more about the career opportunities. And again, many of them are NEETs, but we were quite surprised that many of them are mature career individuals who are looking for a career transition.
Thank you, Amy. In fact, you addressed also what I had in mind to ask about needs, and we see also great potential there through the customization that microcredentials can offer. You can tailor the content to specific learner groups that might be vulnerable and not usually represented in other forms of training and upskilling. So perhaps I go back to Petya, because now I'm also aware of the time. And Petya, I would like to ask you this. There's a lot of activity happening at small scale and at school level through microcredentials. We also need to scale up the efforts at national level. And in your experience, how this project-based approach can be scaled up and inform curricula at national level?
Yes, I'm also aware of the time, so I'll be trying to be very short. To ensure project results are utilized across various sectors, we all realize that support is needed from ministries, but also from employers' organizations, from local authorities, from branch chambers. That means that if a ministry is giving official backing to schools to test new content, and also funding from workshops, employers' organizations, branch chambers should also help the schools and share this knowledge across the members of these organizations. I have prepared 3 examples to give you how we ensure the sustainability of the results of the projects we implement. These are projects mainly funded by the Erasmus Plus program, and the requirements towards these projects that they have a good plan for promotion and visibility. How we use this money, this funding for promotion and visibility, and help in order to sustain project results. One of the approaches is that we establish consultative bodies for the implementation of the project. In these consultative bodies, be it called committees or working groups or something, we try to engage officials from the Ministry of Education or from the local educational authorities, also from employers organizations, different NGOs working in the area, so they really feel engaged in the process. And being engaged, the implementation of project results is better guaranteed, according to our experience. Another approach we have used is at the end of the project to organize a wide national event, like a conference where we present all the project results. And we also try to invite all important decision makers in the education and business area to this national conference. This also have given us good results for the sustainabilities, and this is the approach which we have used for the entire project. In other cases where project results require change in the VET legislation, what we try to do is to arrange a presentation in front of the Educational Committee in Parliament or in front of some other important institution where we present the project results. And then maybe somebody will initiate the required legislative amendment so that the project results continue to be sustainable. So in conclusion, I would say that the funding for promotion and visibility should really be used in a very clever way to try and also use them for the sustainability of the project results.
Thank you, Petya. So I will be very, very short in the closing, but so that I accommodate a very quick response from Silke in one last question for her. You mentioned that the key enabler is teachers. And I would like to ask you, and I suppose also in company trainers, in the case of dual learning, do these actors still have a role in developing and implementing curricular adaptations in this AI emerging landscape? You should unmute yourself, Silke. We cannot hear you.
Thank you, Vlasis, for this question. I think my contribution already made clear which crucial role teachers and also students and co-creative processes play in every step of adaptation with artificial intelligence. Even Dimitra, you mentioned the difficulties in translating in an adequate language level. Even there, we need teachers to proofread, and this is true in every step. But I think what is also crucial for teachers and also for trainers, I think AI intensify a trend that roles of teachers and students have to be defined in a completely different way than in former times in traditional learning settings. I think teachers and trainers have to accept that students work with them really on an eye level. The roles are changing in a way that both parts can use artificial intelligence or digital tools, whatever. And the role of the teacher is more supporting the student to use it in a really responsible way, to learn a responsible way of learning with artificial intelligence. And I think that is something we have to work on. We have to rethink, let's say, the roles of teachers and trainers. But of course, they are key actors also in the future, also with artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Silke, and thank you all the panelists for a great discussion. Very interesting points have been mentioned, and I hope that our audience found many useful action points or suggestions for their own activities. I would like to thank also the presenters before and all the ZFOP team that helped organize the event. I would like also to thank you all those who attended. At some point I realized we were 250 people attending the event, and now we're still 180 or 170 until the very end, which is a great participation. We would like to get your feedback on this event. So we have an evaluation form for you that is you can use the QR code or go through the link that is in the chat. And from our side, we will keep working on the topic. We will invite you to visit our websites, download our practical guide, and visit Univoc's online platform on greening technical vet. More material available on the topic is you can find it on ZFOP's Green Observatory web link. And if you are interested in hearing more about us, you can always subscribe to our newsletter. So one final word to Stelina for her wrap up. Thank you.
I'm attentive all the time. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope it was interesting to everyone as it was for us. And again, warm thanks to the organizing team. For any questions that may have remained unanswered through the chats, we will reach out to you, or please also contact us in the contact form in the events page. So have a lovely afternoon or rest of the day, depends on where you're linking from. And we hope to remain in touch with you through our outputs. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.